Chapter 4. One Safe Corner. The sanctuary gave them 18 meters of protection. The cottage gave them none. A rotten ceiling beam broke loose the moment Arin stepped inside. Mira's turquoise eyes widened. Arin twisted sideways, shielding her with his shoulder as the beam crashed across the doorway behind them. The impact shook dust, dead leaves and several very offended insects from the rafters. Arin remained still for a moment. His injured ankle throbbed. The cut across his back burned. Mira stared at the fallen beam, then slowly looked up at him. "I know," Arin said. Her ears flattened. "The forest tried to kill us. I didn't expect the house to join in immediately." A quiet sound came from Mira's throat. Arin was beginning to suspect that mist-horned cats could laugh. They simply refused to admit it. Outside, the last evening light faded behind Whisperwood's enormous trees. The sanctuary boundary shimmered faintly beyond the wildflowers. Black roots gathered against it, pressing their thorn-covered surfaces against the pale barrier. Every impact sent a weak silver ripple across the clearing. The protection was holding. Barely. Arin looked around the cottage. One corner had lost most of its roof. Rainwater had gathered across the floorboards beneath it. Vines entered through a broken window, and moss covered part of the northern wall. An old table lay on its side. Two chairs had collapsed beneath their own weight. A clay stove stood near the western wall, although the pipe above it was crooked and packed with leaves. The staircase leading to the upper floor had broken halfway up. The entire building smelled of wet wood, dust and abandonment. The sanctuary record appeared. First sanctuary mission. Make one corner safe. Prepare a clean, warm resting place for one injured creature. Current progress. Dry location identified, no dangerous debris removed, no warmth established, no clean bedding prepared, no creature acceptance, pending. Time recommendation, before night temperature falls. Arin looked through the broken window. Mist was already gathering beneath the trees. How cold does this forest become at night? Mira's cloud-like tail wrapped more tightly around her body. That answers the question. Arin lowered her carefully near the wall. The moment her paws touched the floor, she tried to walk deeper into the cottage. Her injured hind leg trembled. Mira. She ignored him. 3 steps later, the damaged leg folded. Arin caught her before she struck the floor. Mira turned in his arms with an expression of deep personal insult. "You are injured." Her turquoise eyes narrowed. "So am I." That did not improve her mood. "I'm not saying you're weak." One ear lifted slightly. "I'm saying that falling onto a dirty floor with an open wound is a bad plan." Mira stared at him for several seconds. Then she allowed him to set her down beside the least damaged wall. Arin leaned his walking branch within reach. "Stay here while I inspect the cottage." Mira looked toward the open doorway. The sanctuary bond carried a small pulse of displeasure. Not fear. Disagreement. Arin corrected himself. "I'm going to inspect the cottage. You may remain here, follow me or do something completely different." The displeasure faded. Mira curled her tail around her paws. She had chosen to remain. Arin smiled faintly. "I'm learning." The western corner was the only possible shelter. Its roof remained mostly intact, and the stone wall behind the clay stove had resisted the years better than the wooden sections. Unfortunately, it was buried beneath broken furniture, leaves and something that had once been a cupboard. Arin began with the dangerous pieces. He lifted one chair by its remaining leg. The wood separated in his hands. "All right." He placed the pieces beside the stove. Firewood. The collapsed table was heavier. Arin gripped its edge and pulled. Pain tore through his left shoulder. His breath stopped. The table slipped from his hands and struck the floor. Mira appeared beside him immediately. He had not heard her approach. "I'm fine." Her turquoise eyes moved toward the blood darkening the torn fabric across his back. Arin could feel her disbelief through the bond. It looks worse than it is. Mira touched one paw to his boot. A small cloud-shaped mark glowed beneath it. The bond carried the memory of him telling her that pain should not be ignored merely because someone could endure it. Arin closed his eyes. You remembered that. Mira sat down. Proudly. Arin lowered himself against the wall. His hands were shaking. The sanctuary's initial light had given him enough strength to reach the cottage, but it had not repaired his wounds. Now that he had stopped moving, exhaustion settled over him like wet cloth. The sanctuary record opened. Keeper condition. Right ankle, severe sprain left shoulder, deep bruising upper back, thorn laceration mana reserve, 8% physical exhaustion, critical recommended action, rest and wound treatment. Warning. The keeper cannot protect a sanctuary while unconscious from preventable injuries. That last sentence sounded personal. Mira's tail moved once. Arin reached for the half-empty water bottle inside the pouch thrown by the Ironcrest spearwoman. Only a few mouthfuls remained. He drank one. Then he stopped. Mira watched the bottle. Her nose moved. Arin poured a little water into the shallow metal cap. Mira approached but hesitated. This came from outside the corrupted area. She sniffed it. The sanctuary record confirmed that the water was clean. Mira drank slowly. Arin gave her another capful. By the time she finished, less than half the water remained. That's all for now. Mira looked at the bottle. So we agree that finding water is important. Her ears lifted. Good. Our first official sanctuary decision. Arin tore a cleaner strip from the inside of his tunic and dampened it with the remaining water. Reaching the wound on his own back was impossible. He tried once. Pain shot through his shoulder. Mira watched him struggle. I suppose asking you to hold a bandage would be unreasonable. Mira stood. Soft mist gathered around her fur. A tiny sphere of clear water formed between her horns. It was smaller than a fruit and trembled unsteadily in the air. Arin stared. Mira. The sphere floated toward his hand. The sanctuary record appeared beside it. Companion ability observed. Moisture gathering. Mira may collect small amounts of clean moisture from the surrounding air. Current effectiveness, low current environment, damp water quality, safe after basic heating. Companion condition, ability use should remain limited. The water sphere dropped into Arin's palm. Several drops escaped between his fingers. Mira swayed slightly. Arin immediately moved toward her. That was enough. She stepped away from his hand. I mean it, you helped. Mira's posture straightened. But you don't need to exhaust yourself to prove that. The bond carried a small, stubborn pulse. Arin recognized it because it felt exactly like his own stubbornness. This is going to be difficult, isn't it? Mira sat beside the stove. Her innocent expression returned. Arin used the first firestone inside the old clay stove. The stone released a steady orange glow when struck against the stable knife. Fortunately, the stove itself had not cracked. Unfortunately, the chimney was blocked. Smoke flowed directly back into the room. Arin cuffed and covered the firestone with a broken clay pot. Mira sneezed. A ring of mist burst from her nose and struck Arin in the face. He stared at her through the drifting vapor. That was not my fault. Mira turned away. Arin took the walking branch and pushed it carefully into the lower chimney opening. Leaves, soot and an abandoned nest fell onto his head. A tiny round creature with 6 leaf-shaped wings flew from the pipe, circled the room in outrage and escaped through the window. Arin wiped a twig from his hair. At least someone still knows how to leave this place. After several attempts, the blockage cleared. The firestone heated the stove without producing smoke, and warmth slowly spread through the western corner. Next came the flow. Arin used a broken plank as a scraper, pushing wet leaves, old straw and dirt toward the doorway. Mira watched for a while. Then she disappeared beneath the remains of the cupboard. Scratching sounds followed. Mira. Her cloud-like tail appeared first. Then the rest of her emerged backwards, dragging a bundle of dry silver grass. The grass had been protected inside a narrow space beneath the cupboard. Arin touched it. Dry, soft, and faintly warm. The sanctuary record identified it. Moonrust grass. Common material in abandoned sanctuary shelters. Properties. Retains warmth, resists mold, gentle on injured creatures, absorbs minor excess mana. Condition. Old but usable after cleaning. You found bedding. Mira placed one paw on the bundle. Yes, you found it. Her chest lifted. You are clearly the better explorer. Mira accepted the statement as obvious truth. Together, though Mira would have objected to that description, they prepared the corner. Arin removed splintered boards and unstable stones. Mira pushed smaller leaves into a pile using her front paws. Whenever Arin glanced toward her, she pretended she had been inspecting the wall instead. Arin shook the moonrust grass outside the doorway, remaining inside the sanctuary boundary. Clouds of dust rose from it. Mira sneezed again. This time the mist ring struck the dust and carried most of it away. Arin looked at her. She looked at the grass. I'm counting that as cooperation. No objection reached him through the bond. A narrow cedar chest stood behind the broken cupboard. Its lid had swollen with age, but the wood remained solid. Arin forced it open with the stable knife. Inside lay a folded blanket. Most of its green color had faded, and a silver tree had been stitched into one corner. The cedar chest had protected it from moisture and insects. Arin checked every side carefully. No mold. No biting creatures. No obvious curse. He spread the blanket over the cleaned moonrust grass beside the stove. The result was not impressive. It was one warm bed in the corner of a ruined house. A cracked wall stood behind it. A broken table shielded one side from cold air. The ceiling still leaked several meters away. Yet the bedding was dry. The floor was clean. The stove radiated gentle warmth. Arin sat beside it. Try it. Mira remained where she was. You don't have to. She approached cautiously. First, she smelled the grass. Then the blanket. Then the wall. She stepped onto the bedding with 3 paws, keeping the injured leg raised. The material compressed beneath her. Mira turned once. Then twice. Finally, she lowered herself into the center. Her large tail curled around her body. The sanctuary record glowed. Mission complete. Make one corner safe. A clean, dry and warm resting place has been accepted voluntarily by an injured sanctuary resident. Reward applied. Minor territory stabilization facility registered. Sheltered resting corner. Nighttime recovery improved slightly within the space sanctuary boundary. Deterioration slowed. Failure consequence, none. The sanctuary remembers every act of care. Silver light passed through the western corner. It did not repair the ruined roof. It did not replace the walls. Instead, it settled into the work Arin had already completed. The blanket became slightly warmer. The stones beside the stove stopped releasing damp cold. A thin line of silver appeared along the intact ceiling beams, strengthening them without changing their weathered appearance. Outside, the barrier brightened. The sanctuary record updated. Soul Sanctuary, Stage 1. Safe radius, 18 meters. Land purification, 0.4% facilities. Ruined cottage. Dry well. Damaged barn. Collapsed creature shelter. Sheltered resting corner. Boundary stability, 27%. Right pointing arrow. 39%. Arin released a long breath. 39% was not reassuring. But it was better than 27. Mira rested her head upon the blanket. Her eyes began to close. Arin leaned against the wall beside the bed. He had intended to examine her wound again. He had intended to clean his own back, inspect the well and find food. His body disagreed. The room tilted. Arin's head struck the wall lightly. Mira's eyes opened. "I'm resting." The bond carried concern. Just for a minute. Arin's vision darkened. Then the sanctuary boundary screamed. A sharp silver sound tore across the clearing. Mira leapt from the bedding. Arin forced himself upright. Outside the cottage, the wildflowers along the northern boundary had bent toward the ground. Something moved beneath them. A black line crossed the clearing. It had already passed through the barrier. Arin gripped his walking branch. That root was inside the sanctuary before we claimed it. The corrupted vein pushed through the soil beside the cottage. It was smaller than the tendrils at the shrine, but it moved quickly, searching beneath the earth. The sanctuary record flashed. Internal corruption detected. Source: dormant black root fragment location, beneath Western Cottage Foundation corruption activity, increasing threat. Sheltered resting corner territory anchor companion recovery. Warning: destroying the physical root without separating the corruption may spread contamination through the sanctuary soil. The black root struck upward. Floorboards broke beside Mira's new bed. She sprang away as thorns tore through the blanket. Arin's exhaustion vanished beneath cold anger. Not because his work had been damaged. Because the first safe place Mira had accepted had been attacked less than a minute after it was created. The root turned toward her. Arin drove the walking branch beneath it, forcing it away. Thorns cut into the wood. The root twisted and threw him across the floor. His injured shoulder struck the wall. Pain blinded him. Mira's fear entered the bond. Then something stronger covered it. Protectiveness. Mist filled the cottage. The root lashed through the white cloud, unable to locate her. Arin pressed one hand to the floor. Corruption sense. Darkness spread through his awareness. The root beneath them was only one branch of a tangled knot buried below the foundation. Part of the knot carried the black root infection. But beneath the corruption remained a pale natural root. It belonged to the dead silver tree outside. The black root had invaded it. Simply cutting the root would damage the sanctuary's own foundation. "It isn't an enemy," Arin whispered. The root struck near his hand. "It's infected." Mira appeared beside him through the mist. Her horns glowed faintly. Another sphere of water formed between them. This one was smaller than the first. "Mira, you need to rest." Her eyes hardened. The root had attacked her bed. Rest was apparently no longer being considered. The water sphere floated toward Arin. He understood. "Put it on the root." Mira released the sphere. Clear water splashed across the thorn-covered surface. The root recoiled. For 1 second, the water revealed two separate currents beneath the black bark. A faint silver line. And the oily corruption wrapped around it. Arin placed both hands against the wet root. Cold entered him immediately. The black root searched for pain. It found plenty. His ankle. His shoulder. The open wound across his back. His hunger. His fear that the sanctuary would collapse before morning. The corruption tightened. Arin's hands began to shake. "You aren't getting this place." The dark fibers pressed deeper. Images entered his mind. The cottage collapsing. Mira trapped beneath the roof. The barrier disappearing. Derek returning only to find Arin dead. A cold suggestion followed. "Command her." The thought did not feel like his own. "Take her strength." The sanctuary bond pulsed between Arin and Mira. No commands available. No forced recall. No authority. Those limits had seemed like weaknesses in the guild hall. Now they protected both of them. "I don't need to take anything." Arin opened his hands against the root. Mira already chose to help. Her small paw touched his wrist. Turquoise light joined the silver glow beneath his fingers. Arin separated the corruption as he had separated it from Mira's wounded leg. Not by crushing it. Not by pulling harder. By finding the boundary. The black fibers resisted. Mira's clean water moved into the cracks. The sanctuary responded. Silver light flowed from the completed resting corner, crossed the floorboards and entered the root beneath Arin's palms. The natural root brightened. The corruption peeled away in thin strands. Black thorns softened. Their sharp tips became harmless grey bark. A final knot remained near the center. Arin felt a deep loneliness inside it. Not the emotion of the corruption. The memory of the silver tree. Years without rain. Years without creatures resting beneath its branches. Years standing beside an empty cottage while its roots slowly darkened. Arin's anger disappeared. You were abandoned too. The pale root trembled. Arin allowed the sanctuary's warmth to pass through his hands. This place is not empty anymore. Mira pressed closer. The black knot opened. Silver water burst through it. The remaining corruption dissolved into grey mist. The root lowered gently to the floor. Its bark had become pale silver. A single tiny blue bud grew from its side. The cottage became silent. First land purification achieved. Purified area, 0.9 square meters black root fragment, separated natural sanctuary root, preserved. Land purification, 0.4% right pointing arrow 1.1% boundary stability, 39% right pointing arrow 51%. New environmental connection detected. The dead silver tree remains alive. Condition: critically dormant. Arin stared at the final line. Outside, a faint glow traveled through the grass toward the split trunk tree. It entered the roots. One narrow silver vein appeared beneath the tree's pale bark. Mira's legs folded. Arin caught her. No more abilities tonight. She gave a weak sound of protest. That wasn't a suggestion. Mira stared at him. Arin corrected himself immediately. It was a strongly expressed request. Her eyes closed. He carried her back to the resting corner. The root had torn part of the blanket, but most of the bedding remained intact. Arin folded the damaged section beneath the moonrust grass and lowered Mira onto it. She did not object this time. The sanctuary record showed her condition. Mira. Physical condition: injured, exhausted, corruption level, 14% right pointing arrow, 12% trust level, 12% right pointing arrow, 17% current need, uninterrupted rest. Arin touched the fur between her small horns. I can manage that. Mira opened one eye. Arin removed his hand before she needed to tell him. Her eye closed again. He sat on the bare floor beside the bedding. The warmth from the stove had begun fading, but one firestone still remained covered beneath the clay pot. Arin uncovered it slightly. Orange light returned to the corner. He cleaned the shallow cuts on his hands. Rewrapped his ankle. Then, with considerable difficulty, he pressed a damp cloth against the wound on his back and secured it beneath the remains of his tunic. It was not proper treatment. But it would slow the bleeding until morning. Assuming morning came peacefully. Arin looked through the window. The black roots remained beyond the boundary. For the first time, however, they were not pressing against every side. The section nearest the purified silver root had withdrawn several meters. One small patch of grass stood brighter than the rest. The sanctuary was still broken. They still had no food. Their drinking water was gone. The roof still leaked. The well remained dry. But one corner was warm. One root had been saved. One frightened creature slept without chains. Arin allowed his eyes to close. Something soft touched his leg. Mira had left the center of the bedding. She now rested along its edge, her cloud-like tail extended across the floor until its tip covered Arin's injured ankle. Arin looked at her. She appeared asleep. You moved closer. One turquoise eye opened. Arin wisely said nothing else. He leaned his head against the wall. For a few minutes, there was only the sound of the stove and the quiet wind beyond the damaged window. Then a drop of water echoed outside. Arin opened his eyes. Another drop fell. Not from the sky. The forest above the sanctuary was clear. The sound had come from the dry stone well. Arin reached for his branch and stepped carefully into the clearing. Silver light from the purified root followed him through the grass. Mira appeared in the doorway behind him, limping but alert. I thought we agreed on rest. She ignored him. Together, they approached the well. Arin looked over the stone edge. The shaft descended into darkness. It should have been completely dry. Instead, a single point of pale blue light shone far below. A drop formed somewhere in the depths. It fell. The sound echoed upward. The sanctuary record appeared above the well. Dormant facility reacting. Moonkeeper's well. Water source, sealed internal corruption, unknown ancient channels restored, 1 of 7 activation requirement, incomplete. New sanctuary mission. Water for the wounded. Discover why the well was sealed. Warning. Something beneath the cottage has noticed the first purification. A sound rose from the bottom of the well. Not a growl. Not moving water. A slow scrape of stone against stone. Mira's fur lifted. Far beneath them, the pale blue light blinked out. Then something knocked once against the sealed wall below.